Okay, welcome back to another video. In this video, we're gonna take our textures that we created in Photoshop and apply them to our geometry here in Substance Painter. Okay, so the first thing we gotta do is find our textures. Here they are. I'm gonna go ahead and select both of them, and I'm simply gonna drag and drop here on the Material tab. Okay, I'm gonna select both of them, and in this case, I'm going to select Texture for both of them. So they both switch to texture. You can switch them individually, or you can select both of them and switch them at once. Now, we go down here, just drop down menu, and you can either save it to your current session or your project. Current session means that these textures will only be available for the duration of the time that you have Substance Painter open. Once you close Substance Painter and reopen it, you will not have these two textures available. Or you can save it to your project, and every time you open up Substance Painter, these two textures will be available. For this particular case, I'm going to go with current session. Now I'm going to go ahead and say import. There we go. We can see them here. These are the two that I imported right now. So now the next thing is to add them to our geometry. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go ahead and click on this little bucket icon, and it says add a fill layer. It automatically gives it a color. You can't really tell because it's pretty much the same color as Lambert. But if I were to switch this to red, you can tell right away it changes color. Okay, it comes along, this fill layer comes along with a few properties here. I'm gonna go into them more in detail later. For now, I'm going to take this color texture map that we created, and I'm gonna drag and drop it to this base color. Okay, automatically it changes to our texture. Okay, every face is identical thanks to the way that we set up our UVs in Maya. If we had set them up differently, this would not be the case. Okay, now what we're gonna do for our height map, we can also include the normal map. Once you do that, you can notice that now your crate texture has crevices. Okay, that's because it's reading this normal map. Now, I particularly don't like that look, the way it looks when you apply it to your height map. I don't know, it looks a little bit off to me. So I'm gonna go ahead and undo that. So by doing that, I click on the little X. And what I will do is go here where it says texture set settings. I'm gonna go ahead and select that, and I'm going to drag and drop this normal texture that I created in Photoshop and drop it to where it says select normal map. Okay, there should be a little plus icon that once you hover over it, and I'm gonna let it drop there. Now it gives it a better look. Okay, at least in my opinion, I feel it looks way better. Now the only thing we have to fix now is this glossiness to it. Okay, wood does not have this glossiness to it unless it's been coated with wax or it's moisture from somewhere, so it'll be like on a ship. Okay, but normally this does not happen, so we want to make sure we get rid of that. The way we do that is by going here to our roughness. In our roughness level, we can either make it super glossy, see, it's super reflective, or we can adjust this down to where would sustain some kind of reflective pattern to it, but not to a point where it would be glossy enough to shine, just enough to capture light. I think about there. That looks fine. Now, the metallic is for metallic. Like I said, you're working in PBR workflow, so you're gonna have to deal with metallic properties as well. And in order for that to not affect us, right now we have it set to 0. If we were to set this to 1, you can see that then now it's fully metallic. Okay. And if we were to set our roughness to super glossy, now you have even more metallic. Okay, almost gold-like texture. Okay, so you could always mess around with these. For now, I'm gonna go ahead and give it a property of a value of 0 for our metallic, and a little bit less. There we go. That's good enough for me. Okay, I'm gonna go jump back out to our layers. Oh, and just one more thing before I jump back into layers. Here in your fill layer, you have, see where it says UV transformations? You have the option of scaling, rotating, offsetting your UVs. You don't have to do anything right now because we set these up in Maya correctly. But I mean, if you create some kind of tileable type of texture, this is where you would go. So for example, see how now there's a lot of little crates because we're pretty much tiling them up. Okay, but we don't have to mess with this since we set our UVs correctly in Maya. So I'm gonna go ahead and give this back to 1. And there you go. There is your crate. Now this might look good as is, but we need to add some grunge effects. Okay, we want to make this look real. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and jump back out to our layers, and just like Photoshop, any layer, paint layer that you had, fill layer that you had, will add on top of it. Okay, so for example, I'm going to select this add a fill layer again, and it automatically jumps on top, with making the bottom layer obsolete. You can still see some of the details because it's embedded in the normal map, but as for the color, it's gone. Okay, so now for the grunge, you go to erase color. I'm gonna go ahead and select some kind of dark, murky brown. All right, so in order for me to see my colors better, yeah, I think that's good. And then I'll go somewhere in between, probably right there. That looks pretty good. There we go. So I'm gonna leave it as is, and then I'm going to select this add a black mask. Okay, and just like Photoshop, you paint off. Okay, now here's where the fun part begins. You're able to customize your brushes way better than Photoshop. You're able to import brushes from other websites. You can buy brushes, you know, whatever works best for the project that you need at hand. There's this, artistic type brushes. There's grunge, you know, there's a lot to do in Substance Painter. It's like Photoshop on steroids. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to make my brush smaller. Now it's similar to Photoshop. Control, holding down Control and right clicking and then dragging, you control the size of your brush. Okay, so I want to go small, and for the same thing, I want to create some depth. So remember, whatever you do to one side will reflect on all. So for example, if I go here, you can see that it's done to all of them because of the way we set up our UVs in Maya. So Control Z to undo, and I'm going to go ahead and start painting. Okay, feel free to do your own design. This is just the way I'm working. You don't have to do it this way. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and make this a little bit darker, and then I'm going to create a depth here. That way it appears that the two outer ones okay, so I want this to appear as if they have they're more in a different height, right? I want to create depth. Now, the thing about grunge is that grunge always tends to accumulate within cracks, right? So I'm going to go ahead and go even smaller. I'm going to go ahead and just highlight these little crevices. Okay, like that. And I'm going to do that to each one. Like I said, this is my way. You don't have to do my way. If you have your own technique, you can go ahead and do your own. If you don't like the colors that I'm using, you can change your colors. This is just what I'm doing, okay? And I do suggest that you get creative. Okay, so whatever I'm doing here, feel free to do it, but I do suggest adding your own touch. Okay, be original. Here we go. Okay, now to add grunge, what I'm going to do, instead of having to manually use a brush and just tap 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 everywhere, I rather use what we call a generator. So I'm going to right click over the mask and I'm going to add a generator. Here in this generator, you can either click or import new ones, and I'm going to select dirt. Okay, so as you can see, it's manually put dirt all over my box. Okay, now I can leave it as is, or I can do some fine tuning, which is exactly what I'm going to do. So I'm going to go ahead and right click, and I'm going to add a paint layer on top of that. So here, whatever I do here, you can still see it. So I'm going to go ahead and say, you know what, I need, what would look good? Sponge. There we go. Now this sponge brush is a little too big for my tastes. I'm going to reduce the size. You can also reduce the size up here, the flow, and your stroke opacity. So I'm going to reduce the opacity down to 50. Okay, and again, I'm simply going to retouch these areas. Here, one more time. Okay. If you want to take away, the quick key for that is X, and it'll turn your brush black. So for example, see, starts taking away. But I don't want to take away there. I want to take away right here. This area here. This area here. Maybe I don't like this here. This doesn't really make sense. Okay. I'll leave that there. Actually, I'm going to add a little bit more here. Right there. Maybe one there. I will add on the corners. So I'm going to click, hold down, shift, create a straight line. Corners tend to be the dirtiest. I'll do the same thing for the top. The side. I'll do 2. And then bottom. Now, the corners, I'm going to go ahead and darken them a little bit more. Okay? Just because corners, I don't know, for some reason, whenever I see corners, it's where all the dust collects. Right? So I'm going to go ahead and darken up the corners a little bit more. And while I'm at it, I'm going to go ahead and give it one more pass. Here, here, here. Okay. Maybe one huge pass. Maybe at a 75% here and here. Okay, there we go. That looks pretty dirty, right? Now, as I was texturing this, I noticed the glossiness, okay? That's because we did not take the glossiness off of the grime texture, okay? Grime is not glossy, okay? So we want to make sure we fix that, okay? So what we do, we select our color texture, this one, not the mask, our color texture, and we go down here. Now, here's the cool part. For the height, you can either raise it, so it'll be as if the dirt collected on top of it, and it'll look like this, see? Or you can either lower it, and it'll look as if it's eating away at the wood. Well, then it'll look like this, see? Now, grime doesn't really eat away. Grime builds on top. So I'm going to go ahead and set it to 1. I'm also going to add some roughness to it. So it's not glossy. Grime is not glossy at all. In fact, it's the opposite. And 0 metallic. Okay, so now, if you take a better look, there we go. And I feel my edges might be a little too dark. I'm going to go ahead, go back to my paint layer, and I'm going to just remove a little bit. Maybe set it down to 45 for opacity. I'm simply just going to remove a little bit of the corner right here. And I feel like this one down here isn't dark enough. So I'm going to go ahead and that change. Alright, looks good there. Yeah. Let's see what else what other kind of brushes we can find. If you hover over it, it'll give you a preview. So dirt spots, that looks pretty good, pretty interesting. Let's make this bigger. You can always change the size. Right now it's at 100. I can make this even bigger. I can go 200, and I'll make it even bigger. See? I don't want that. I'm gonna go back to 100, and I want. You know what I want? I want something with particles. Okay. Now let's see. I have burn, fill, heavy leaks, organic. I'm gonna go with leaks. So with leaks, works with particles. It's a particle system brush. So, for example, you click and you watch it go. So the more you click, the more it goes. So for me, I'm going to put some leakage down here. I want to increase my brush size. Oh, for example, the more you increase it, the more it'll leak. The more you hold your mouse down, the more leak you get. Okay, and this isn't right for me. I'm gonna see maybe heavy leaks. See how that looks. That looks okay. So I'm gonna increase my brush, and I'm going to maybe start it from here. No, that does not look right. Alright, cancel that. Stroke opacity, move it down to maybe 50%. And let's see. Let's try here. Yeah, that looks good. No. Don't like it. I'll leave that one on though. That one came out pretty good. Maybe 60%. Let's see. Maybe a finer brush. Yeah. Not bad. Okay, I'm gonna go with this one. I'm just going to add some leakage here. Okay. Now I'm going to take it away. So I'm going to go back to my brushes, and I'm going to go to back to brush, sponge. Sorry. Okay. And I'm going to take some of this away. Opacity 45. I'm taking away the really dark spots. I still want some of that leakage, just not as dark. Okay, that looks pretty good. Okay, so there is your crate. Okay, now I'm not finished here. I want to get a little bit more creative. I want to go ahead and add some textures along the sidelines right here. Okay, and in the middle. For that, I'm gonna go ahead and do that on a separate